Hey there everyone, my name is Samuel Johnson, and it is friggin' early. Yeah, I'm recording this video at 6 something in the morning, so it's still pretty early, the sun's not up, and I'm a little tired, but I figured I wouldn't really have any other opportunity to record this video other than later, and I guess I decided just why not. So, if you have no idea who the hell I am a very low grade, and I mean very low grade, YouTuber who primarily does vlogs. And what those vlogs entail is that every Friday I sit down, watch an episode or entry into a TV series or film franchise that I myself enjoy, and then once I'm done watching them, I sit down in this chair and then record my thoughts in a usually 15 to half hour long vlog. Usually goes longer depending on how much I have to say, or in the case of certain other projects, they tend to go over an hour. They are completely unscripted, unrehearsed, and just unprofessional in every sense of the word. I record them on my tablet. I don't have any sound equipment, and even at night now, I'm using my phone as a light. So that should give you an idea of how unprofessional they are. But the thing is, I've been doing these vlogs for about a few years now. I've talked about series like Ben 10 Alien Force, Danny Phantom. Right now, I'm on Code Lyoko, and before I talked about Code Lyoko, I did a vlog series on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and like I said, those vlogs were pretty much like all my other vlogs. Every Friday, I sat down, watched an entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then did a vlog on my thoughts. And thing is, how my vlogs typically work is that I talk about the story of what I'm watching before I actually get to my thoughts on it. When that usually entails me spoiling the plot rotten. I go into every little detail, beginning, middle, and end, then give my thoughts on it together. So that's why those typically go over an hour, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to a movie. But the thing is, when I did the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when I talked about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I typically only talked about the films that were in the core series. I didn't talk about spin-offs or other things. So I didn't talk about the side movies, so, their short films that film about Phil Coulson and what he did when he did something on the way to Thor's hammer, or that one that talked about the Mandarin after he was broken out of prison by the Ten Rings. I just talked about the core films. And while I was talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one film that I was tempted to talk about was the film Venom. It was one of those movies that had come out under the Marvel banner, but really was not officially connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And the thing is, at the time when it came out, it was up in the air whether it would be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As a result, I didn't really decide to give it any attention because it was meant to be the start of Sony's own cinematic universe. Because if you're unaware, when the Marvel Cinematic Universe became successful, many other film studios tried their hand at their own cinematic universes, and the results are all mixed at best. We got the DC Extended Universe, which is chugging along, but not as well. We got the attempt at Universal's shared monster universe, which fell apart after the Mummy. And then, of course, and even Sony, and the only two other ones that seem to have some kind of, the only other one that seemed to have some kind of success is 20th Century Fox's X-Men universe, and with Disney buying the film division of 20th Century Fox, that's kind of fallen apart too, as X-Men are now being folded into the MCU. So, yeah, there's still some kind of, there's a lot of problems that can occur if you try and start a cinematic universe without taking the proper steps. And unfortunately, every one of those film franchises, and unfortunately this includes X-Men, does seem to tend to do that. As for me, in my opinion, if you want to start, the one of the things that helped made the Marvel Cinematic Universe work is that they built a strong foundation before they started building more onto it. And in this case, before they started introducing more aspects to be used in future films, they first had to make individual movies that could be standalone, that could come together in the form of the Avengers. And after they did that, that's when they could start introducing aspects that could be used for further sequels, because at that point, they already had established the universe. So I could get into a whole rant on that, but we're not here to talk about that. Instead, we should instead go back to Sony. Sony themselves did try their hands at their own cinematic universe because at the time that I'm recording this, Sony owns the film rights and video game rights to Spider-Man. While Marvel still does own the character, Sony can, when it comes to film and video games, Sony can do what they want with him, and they tried to essentially create their own cinematic universe revolving around Spider-Man in the form of the Amazing Spider-Man duology. Unfortunately, Amazing Spider-Man 2 kind of did not do as well as they had hoped, and while I myself do like the movie, again, it suffered from some very similar problems, doing too much with too little, and it didn't really and as a result, it didn't do as it did not become what Sony had hoped it would be, and which ultimately is what resulted in that cinematic universe just going kaput, and Sony finally talking with Marvel about Spider-Man officially joining the MCU. However, while that particular cinematic universe got the kibosh early on, Sony still wanted to create their own universe. And the thing is, when I said they owned Spider-Man, I meant that they own anything related to Spider-Man, which includes Spidey himself, his supporting cast, and all of his villains. So that being said, there's a lot of characters that you can pull from Spidey's comics that could make very interesting stories, and that's what Sony ultimately attempted to do by making Venom. However, Venom was essentially like their way of trying to test the waters. Like, it was vague. Like, if the film was successful enough, they could use it as the jumping board for their cinematic universe, but if it wasn't as good, they could still easily fold it back into the MCU because the connection was vague enough so that you could say, oh, it could take place in the MCU, but also not so vague enough that you say it couldn't. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that, dog. But like I was saying, it was vague enough that they could ultimately add Venom to the MCU if things didn't work out. As such, I didn't count Venom as part of the Marvel as the for my MCU vlogs because I didn't consider the connection solid enough to actually consider it part of the MCU. And until it had that solid connection, I was just going to kind of push it aside. Well, Sony ultimately did release a trailer for the next film in their cinematic universe, or what was supposed to be the next film in their cinematic universe, and after watching the trailer, a solid connection was created, and suddenly Sony's films now are Sony's films are now officially a part of the MCU, sort of. Essentially, based on what I can tell, the Sony's films are going to be in the MCU, but they're not going to be a part of the core MCU timeline. They're still going to be doing their own thing elsewhere. It's just that the events of the larger MCU will be reflected in their movies while that stuff's going on. So while the big stuff with characters like the Hulk, Captain Marvel, or other big names are happening over here we've got characters like, say, Venom or Morbius that are doing their own thing, eventually leading into something that happens with them, which, yes, will be connected to Spider-Man. So in a sense, you could say that what Sony is ultimately doing is kind of a mix of both methods, having it be a part of the MCU, but still doing its own thing, which I'm perfectly okay with. But with that being said, when a solid connection was created, I finally decided, you know what, fine, I will give these films a look for the sake of my vlogs. But like I said, since they're not a part of the core Marvel Cinematic Universe film series, I felt that if I was going to talk about them, it couldn't be a part of my core vlogs. If I was going to talk about them, they technically would need to be their own vlogs, which is where this is about today. You see, today I'm going to start looking at all the films that Sony has put out as part of their cinematic universe. Now, again, at the time I'm recording this, that's only 2 movies, but so I'm only going to be doing this for a couple weeks before I do a hiatus. But again, when new movies do come out, I am going to be coming back and looking at them every Friday like I did with the other ones. But for now, for today and next week, I'm going to be starting a side vlog, so to speak, to my MCU vlogs, which again will entitle me looking at Sony's films. They're gonna essentially they're gonna be under the same process as the rest of my vlogs. I'm gonna sit down, watch a movie, then record my thoughts, and then ultimately it's up to you whether they're any good or not. So I genuinely do hope you enjoy, but honestly, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Was floundering a little. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to be doing a side vlog series that's going to be focusing exclusively on the films in Sony's universe of Marvel characters, specifically the ones that are tied to the MCU. I'm not going to be talking about films like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, unless that film shows a direct connection to the MCU as well, then I'll include it in these vlogs. But till that day comes, it's just going to be exclusively the live action stuff, how it all connects, what my thoughts are on those, just the same general stuff that I do for the regular MCU vlogs. If you're interested, by all means, I hope you check them out. And if you're not interested, totally fine. Like I said, very unprofessional, craptacular vlogs. But I like doing them anyway, so I do them. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you do come in and watch them. And I'm not going to be doing my first vlog right away because another major reason I'm doing this in the morning is because later on I'm doing the actual first vlog for these sub-series with my friend Haley later in the day. So I'm hoping that's when I'll be posting the vlog for the first film. But on the off chance that you are interested, I hope that you enjoy the ride as we dive into Sony's universe of Marvel characters with the MCU perspectives, Sony edition. And of course, as I mentioned, the first film we're going to be taking a look at today is a film centered on one of Spider-Man's greatest foes, Venom.